What made you lose respect for someone? A woman I was friends with for decades who lives in another state started sharing more and more personal stuff on Facebook. It was odd when she basically live blogged a huge fight she and her husband were having. But then when her girls became teenagers, she started sharing really personal stuff about them, including details about their mental health struggles. That's out there for everyone to see about those young women now, through no choice of their own. I stopped having anything to do with her after that. I hope those girls are okay. I'm always amazed when people tell these horror stories of how the people they knew were total pieces of shit. Having grown up bullied my whole life and screwed over in more ways than I can remember, there are two things I remind myself as I go about from day to day. 1. Respect is earned, not given. 2. Trust no one. I know it's not a nice way to go through life, but seriously it'll save a lot of heartache by being wary of everyone and everything. When I realized what a toxic person my dad is to my mum. When my best friend, 37 mom of 3, turned petty all because I, 44 mom of 3, moved an hour further away, due to custody issues. Made it easier for 50-50 custody, and I was able to transfer with my job with more hours. She knew it, but couldn't accept that the pros outweighed the cons. She also made the mama bear persona look bad. She stalked her daughter's boyfriend to an extreme. Scary shit. Couldn't see myself being friends with her anymore. She wasn't the person I became friends with years earlier. My son misses her and her girls, but I just can't. Someone stopped being my friend, his underlings who I was friends with too, followed. Treating retail workers poorly. My grandmother, when she got on the phone to one of my aunts, her daughter, and said, "Do you know what that bitch said?" This was in reference to my then 12-year-old sister who had just confessed to one of our uncles, my grandmother's still, being abusive toward her. It was the first and most clear moment I can remember losing all respect for an adult and someone I'd cared about. Let's turn it around. What made you gain respect for someone? This happened a few years ago, but still sticks with me even though everything bad my father ever does seems to escape his memory. We had a disagreement with a family outside of our neighborhood when he lost his temper and was yelling at kids to get a dog out of the road because we almost hit it. Then the parents came out, starting a 20+ minute screaming match. A few weeks later, their 6 or 7-year-old kid is riding his bike around our neighborhood, and my dad claims he was making faces at him, so he always scowled at him as he went by. One day me, my mother, and my father are in the car, and the kid is about halfway through the neighborhood on his bike. We stop while my father is driving, and he rolls down the window to scream at and insult this 6 or 7-year-old. He screams at him saying he's a fat slob that's never going to amount to anything, and that him and his family were trash and were worth nothing. At this point the kid's crying and he continues to go on and on insulting this child while both of us beg him to stop. His sadism keeps him going, yelling at the kid for what seemed 5+ minutes of just berating and insulting, and he finally stops. He's pretty skilled at hurling bullshit at people for dumb amounts of time. Glad I escaped soon. My high school volleyball coach used to brag about getting a bloody nose during a match but refusing to let her team down and continued to play. It made me respect her. Then one day at practice I sprained my ankle. She asked if I would let an injury prevent me from playing and let my team down. I said no and continued to practice for over an hour with a sprained ankle. I was so proud of myself. The next morning my ankle was the size of a softball and blue all over. It was bad, but I was proud of my injury. I received a doctor's note preventing me from participating in PE during school. We didn't have any games that weekend, so I was fine with waiting a week. When I got to PE, the PE teacher was mad. He called my coach. She refused to believe that my ankle was sprained and made me remove my bandage. Then when she saw it, she yelled at me for 10 minutes telling me I was an idiot to play injured. I lost all respect for her at that moment and quit volleyball the next year. To me she was a hypocrite and I hate hypocrites. Plus she lied to the PE teacher and claimed she hadn't encouraged me to continue practice. Lent a friend $1,500 for rent, spent $1,200 for girl's birthday. His girl of 2 months BTW. Then bought an $8,000 VR gaming setup with a racing chair just to realize he couldn't use it as he got dizzy. Sold it for $3,000. Great timing. Just recently I lost a close friend because I couldn't respect him anymore. Well, here it goes. I've known this guy for 7 years now, and he would always be pretty supportive and genuinely a decent guy to hang out with. Well, recently this guy has had shit luck with his life and it's been going downhill. I keep in mind he just turned 50 and he already thinks his life is over. Well, his ex-wife who cheated on him recently got shot in the face in a random accident. He was insinuating that she deserved it for everything she did while they were married. Often he said things like shit catches up to you eventually. Couldn't have any respect for a man after saying something like that to someone he loved who was also fighting for their life in the hospital. When my F52 told me it was not his or my mother's role to help me raise my children after their father died. They were F7, M5, M3 at the time and I had been a Zam who had to find a job quick smart, and find after-school care and daycare. 11 years on and he has pulled more judgmental and overbearing bullshit on me and I drew the line 2 weeks ago because of something happening. Low contact now. I will never be good enough and will always be a disappointment to him and my mother. YouTuber I used to watch, she has a top tier of her Patreon where she sends UNSFW pictures of her. She said she was a men's rights activist. I'm sure many of you know who I'm talking about. Them saying I'm always right. Friend asked to use my laundry as hers was broken. She needed to wash her uniform for work, 2 polos and black slacks, and her machine was broken, so I said of course. She proceeds to come over 4 days in a row with more baskets that included her and her sister's clothes. The thing is I would have said yes, but she tried to be sneaky about it. Claiming the clothes weren't dry enough, leave and say she'd be back in the morning, but she showed up with more clothes. I even offered to just drop it off once they were dry and she said it wasn't a problem. Next had more baskets. The thing is I wouldn't have minded if she were straight up. And for the past couple of months, she's only been hitting me up when she needs something. She asked me to take her to the airport this week. I grew a pair and straight up said no. If they read this I'll be in trouble. But my ex-friend saying I'm toxic and threatened me for saying to play with her other friend. When my father told me to just bear with the bullying of my classmates do to me and they will eventually get bored and leave me alone while beating me with a stick. Watching an ex-friend boasting about cheating on his girl and showing everyone pics and trying to flex, made me sick to think of that sweet girl putting trust on someone like that skeptical. When they started smoking, peeing in bottles in their room and never getting rid of them so it reeks, and their place being a mess, also lives with their parents. When my dad was sick and on oxygen waiting for a lung transplant, my sister wouldn't do a thing to help him, no driving him to appointments or checking in see how he was doing. She focused on her new boyfriend. When my dad got the transplant I was already helping take care of my grandfather. Time for dad to come home from the hospital and she can only come and stay during the day, no nights, cause she can't be away from her boyfriend. I was told I stay the night on top of the week I was already staying to help, cause she thought I was already going to be up there to help my grandfather. I haven't talked to her willingly since. They were dating a friend, but then I find out through an accidental text sent to me that he was swinging with another girl, and another girl. When I told him that it was me and that it wasn't cool that he was doing this to my friend, he asked me not to tell my friend, that we're guys and we should be able to do things like that because we have the right to. I immediately took screenshots and showed it to my friend. I even went out of my way to go over and show her the text messages in person, number and all. They aren't together anymore, thankfully. The guy tried talking to me about it, but I do not to associate myself with scumbags of society. The guy in question grew up with old school values, much like I did. I detest the old school machismo values, so I actively avoid doing stuff like that, including cheating. When I found out Lil Nas X talked about how bad COVID was when people got on him for the blood shoes, then went to a huge party without a mask or anything. That guy who borrows money from everyone and have no intention of returning it ever. When you remind him about it, he gets mad and made it seem like the lender is a compassionless bastard for asking for the money back. I visited an old friend recently after a long time. I guess I'd forgotten that they were openly sexist and homophobic. Cut ties real quick.
With